Abracadabra, y'all watch this. Did you catch it? Watch the video and please never do to your knives what I just did to mine.
Hi there, nice people, hello lady and gentlemen. And if you wonder why I use this type of greeting, it is because I looked at my channel's demographics, which clearly shows that for every 1,000 views, I get 6 females watching this channel. But here lies the silver lining. I can thank them all right here, right now. Mom, thank you, but obviously not everyone thinks I am as handsome as you think. This being a Thanksgiving week, I really appreciate every single one of my commenters, subscribers, people who hit the like button. Thank you. You make it all worthwhile. In a previous video, you saw me using this staghorn to test sharpness of these Freek knives right here. And what the result was that the M4 bladed Freek started losing its ability to cut paper after 40 sewing motions on this piece. And the Freek in S90V got to the same point after 80 cuts. And this is the M4 edge after using it on the staghorn. Notice how toothy Benchmade edges are. And here is the S90V. Looks like the bevel has a little more obtuse angle on this knife. I'm showing all this to you for a reason. 2 reasons, actually. I need to test a couple theories here. Firstly, you've heard and seen Dr. Larrin Thomas, the inventor of MagnaCut steel, say on several occasions in several videos that the steel is less important than the edge geometry. And I am going to illustrate it. And second, and maybe even more interesting, a gentleman named Chris Webb commented on the first video about how I misspoke, and I said M4 was a ingot steel. And he is confident that Benchmade makes these M4 knives right here out of M4 CPM, or powder metallurgy steel. So that kind of left a little bit of a suspicion in my mind, because if you go to the Crucible Industries, the maker of either ingot or CPM M4, as well as S90V, if you go to their website and read recommendations for each of the steels, and I took my time and read them, they say that the powder form of M4 is best suited for high-thickness metal cutting tools, and by high thickness they mean something of that size. Obviously, that brings us to like a kind of iffy question, kind of like, even if Benchmade is in fact using the powdered form of M4 steel, which is more expensive than the ingot form, that means that either they're wasting our hard-earned cash, or they are not being completely honest and actually are buying a less expensive ingot rolled steel. And that is why they're omitting the letter CPM on the blades. So for you steel nerds out there, here's the data from Crucible website, and I think it will help us figure out the answer to that question. I'll share my conclusions with you toward the end of the video. Meanwhile, if you have any thoughts on the topic, how would you determine this without using a lab? Please write me a comment. I mean, hit pause and do it right now. It'll be interesting for you to go back and see if our thoughts coincided. I'm going to sharpen both edges using this Worksharp Pro Precision Adjust tool. This is my current go-to sharpener. The blade in the S90V is not going to receive a new geometry. I'm going to keep it at the factory 20, I think it's 22 to 24 degrees per side angle. I'm just going to match the angle and clean the edge, remove the toothiness. That will go a long way to improving its edge retention. And then for the M4 blade, we are going to put a much more acute angle. I think I'm going to take it all the way down to 14 to 15 degrees to see if the edge retention improves. And if you're wondering where this bright idea came from, it's from Dr. Larrin Thomas's book, Knife Engineering. You don't even have to go beyond chapter 1. It's all in there. But something tells me that if you got that far into this video, the book is just right for you, and you will read more than just the first chapter. The Amazon link to the book will be in the description.
And if you ever sharpen Benchmade knives with thumb studs in a fixed angle device, please do yourself a favor and remove the studs for the duration of the sharpening, or risk them ending up looking like this. Step 1 accomplished. Here's the S90V blade. I kept the factory angle, which I was actually spot on. It's 23 degrees per side, pretty obtuse for a pocket knife. On my M4 blade, the new edge is at 16 degrees per side. So here's a piece of paper towel. It's Aldi brand. I can't afford more expensive paper towels because I collect knives. And let's see how these newly updated edges cut. I always dare everybody to try that at home with their sharpest knife. And what it does to the printer paper should be pretty scary. Yeah, I don't even feel like it's there, you know. And then again, the more obtuse. I'm going to test it with the staghorn, making 20 cuts with each blade and then testing the sharpness. For each blade, once I determine that it starts tearing into the paper rather than smoothly cutting it, I will pause the test. In real time, this test took over 7 minutes, and you're watching it at the speed of 32x. Perhaps, if you like the video, now would be a good time to hit that like button. Did you know that for each minute of your viewing time, it takes me 1 hour to edit the video? So let's sum up this test's results. After 120 cuts with each blade, both of them are still cutting pretty well. There's almost no tearing. This is a staggering improvement over the factory edge. It is clear that putting some elbow grease into changing the edge geometry or simply improving its quality will give you an incredible improvement in the edge retention. And now it's time to dive into some weeds. In the previous video about these two same knives, I already established that the Rockwell hardness of the M4 blade is close to 65. Based on that, one would expect toughness to be 8.5 to maybe 10 foot-pounds. But if you look at the Crucible's datasheet for the powdered M4, you can see a huge jump in toughness at that hardness. So I would estimate it to be around 30 or 3 times improvement. This is staggering, a 300% improvement in toughness just because the steel is in its powdered form. But how would I figure out which one it is without a lab? Because we have a knife with exact same blade geometry, but in S90V, we are going to use this table from the Crucible website and a simple experiment to determine which steel we got. The top row shows that the toughness for CPM S90V is 19 foot-pounds, which happens to be smack in between the M4 in ingot and M4 in powdered form toughness, which were 10 and 30 foot-pounds correspondingly. But how can I use this information? These two knives are twins. Same exact geometry, plus these conveniently located lanyard holes. Because of a reduction in weight of carbon fiber, the premium version is half an ounce lighter than the Super Freek. But I know how to fix that. When disassembling Benchmade knives, be prepared for all kinds of weirdness. These otherwise identical knives have hardware installed from different sides. For example, these blind studs right here, as well as the pivot, are mirror reflections of one another. So I already took some of the screws out, but on this knife they come out from the left side and then this knife from the right.
Same with the pivot. And another incredibly important thing to remember when disassembling Benchmades is you will never know how much Loctite you're going to have to deal with. This is pivot number 1. This is pivot number 2. When you're disassembling Benchmade, you have to have a really good quality T6 bit. And you need to have a torch style lighter, because what I do, I heat up the hardware. Unlike the FRN handles, G10 and carbon fiber handles are pretty flame resistant. So I just come in, I heat up the spacers, or I just hit the screw head straight on like this, or the pivot, look, like this. 3 seconds, 3 seconds on the other side, let the heat soak in, and then you should be able to carefully use your screwdriver or T6 driver to take the hardware out. Yep. To equalize the weight, I swapped one carbon fiber scale for the G10 scale on the other knife and vice versa. The original Super Freek now has a dark side. And the premium Super Freek now has a gray area. Engineering humor. So what is it all about, you wonder? Here's my test fixture for the blade toughness. As you can see, the knife is suspended here, pivoting on the lanyard hole. And on this end, there's a slot in plywood and a hardened piece of steel, basically. It's a drill bit. So my plan is to open the blade and then let the knife fall, striking the pin with the blade, after which I will measure the depth of the notch that was created. I will compare it then to the M4 blade, and the expectation is if the M4 blade's notch is deeper than that of the S90V, that means that it is actually less tough, making it a ingot steel. If, on the other hand, the notch is deeper on a S90V blade, that means this is indeed a powdered M4. And obviously, it is not my desire to put a huge number of notches in the blade, so let's hope it all works on the first test, and I'll get conclusive results. Okay. And I have a notch. Hopefully you can see it. Oh yeah. I had to get a less reflective background for you to see better, but clearly on the bottom that is S90V blade, it has a little bit more damage than the M4. Let me try to get a better angle. You can see that it divoted the blade, and also there is some edge rolling present. You can see it right. This is a good shot to see it. The M4 has a shallower divot, and while it has some edge rollover, it's a little bit less than S90V. So let me try to line them up. You can see like this, and then let me switch them. All in all, if my conspiracy theory, quote unquote, was correct,
and this was made out of the ingot steel, the divot would have been much deeper than on S90 blade, and it's not. And now I can conclusively state that Benchmade is using CPM M4 steel.
So let's talk about what we've learned. We have learned that changing the edge geometry or even improving the finish on the edge takes a huge precedence over anything else in how well your blade performs as far as edge retention goes. We also learned that there is almost no difference between how M4 in its CPM or powder metallurgy form works and how S90V works as far as toughness. The main reason to buy this knife for anybody would be to actually have as stainless steel blade as possible. S90V has excellent stainless properties. And if you like the carbon fiber aesthetics and half an ounce of weight reduction is also critical to you, then definitely this is a knife for you. And if you just want a tough, hard-working knife and not as concerned about corrosion, and you like the aesthetics and a little bit of the extra weight of the G10, and you don't mind putting a acute angle on the edge, then this knife will perform basically as well as the more premium one with a carbon fiber. Which brings me to the next point. I think what I did here just to equalize the weight of the knives actually made me think that this could be actually a very viable addition of this knife. I like the blackout look of the blade combined with a little bit of shimmer in the carbon fiber, and I like the fact that all the hardware is black. I would probably make the spacers black as well. And I actually also think that this knife right there in this accidental guise also looks good. I think the black and gray finish on this G10 plays well with the bare metal or naked metal or metal in the white on the blade and on the elements of the frame and the access lock. Now, I would also not mind a brushed finish, a white metal pocket clip like they did on some other knives, like for example a vector clip. And I wouldn't mind having hardware, all the screws in the white as well, as long as, and the pivot. And I reserve the right to do it to this knife, so I might do it and do a little short about it.